I built this car to be the perfect balance of performance and cost. A healthy amount of turbo power that can run reliably through the stock drivetrain, and best of all, fireballs on demand. NA Turbo Miata. It's like an S2000, but with torque. Hello everyone, my name is Matt Weiser, and I have the world's first Turbo Miata on YouTube. When I found this car, I was not in no place to purchase what would have been at the time a third vehicle. My wife was just finishing up her master's and we had 2 kids living in a small apartment. But I found this car. It's a 1994 Miata, the perfect year. It's an OBD1, and it no longer has to go through emissions or anything like that in the state. I found this car completely untouched, 34,000 miles, and it was just too good of a deal to pass up. I had to make it happen. The timing was not right, but the car was perfect, so I made it happen. Very happy I did, because the car is in great shape. There's no rust. The car's never seen winter weather, and it was just a really great starting point for a project car. So after a couple years of owning the car, I really wanted to start getting into racing. So I started off with a few local autocrosses. I did autocross this car once with completely stock suspension, stock everything except for a set of Falcon Azenis on some RPF 1s, and it was hilarious because the car looked like it wanted to tip over. And as I started getting more and more competitive with autocrossing, I started with some suspension mods, shocks, sway bars, springs, wheels and tires. The car was really fun while racing, but driving on the street is when I realized this car's #1 problem, which was its lack of power. I thought of a bunch of different mods. I thought about going supercharged, I thought about going turbo, I thought about engine swaps and things like that, but at the time I didn't really have much experience. And I really wanted to learn more about it. I've always been really into cars, but I've never really dived into a build as far as I have with this car. I've never turbocharged a car, so that was why I decided to go that route. So with the help of my good friend Tom, he's actually been on the channel a couple times with his Exoset and his V6 Miata, we actually soldered this ECU together. Like, we built this ECU completely and tuned it all by ourselves as well, because I just really I felt like it was the best way for me to learn about tuning and everything that's involved in that. So sometimes I like to cause a ruckus on the street, and so with a little bit of help from ya boy, Greg Peters, in one of his tuning videos, I actually tuned this car to shoot fireballs whenever I want it to, which can be very fun, and it's fun to scare people. So the whole point of this build was to go as far as I possibly could reliably with the factory driveline components. I didn't want to, open that can of worms where you're swapping in transmissions that can handle more power, you're swapping in rear ends that can handle more power. I wanted to kind of push the Miata's OEM driveline as far as it could go reliably. The engine is completely stock. I've only done a water pump and some of the normal routine maintenance on the engine, but other than that, it's completely stock. Haven't touched it. Transmission is stock 5-speed. The rear end is a stock 4.1 Torsen. So there's a lot of different ways you can go turbocharging a Miata. There are cheaper kits out there, and then there's kits like Flyin Miata, which is what I decided to go with. Because their kits are just so well sorted out. The turbo that's included in the Flyin Miata kit is a Garrett GT2560, which fits the displacement of the engine really well. It spools up, it's at full boost at 3,000 RPM, and it doesn't feel laggy at all on the street. The car made 231 wheel horsepower and 217 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels, DynoJet STD corrected. And I feel like that's a good sweet spot because you start to worry about transmission issues at 250 horsepower, maybe connecting rod issues at 250 horsepower. For fueling, where the boost levels I'm at right now, all I needed to do was actually upgrade the injectors. It's starting to get to that point now where it's running out of fuel pressure. My injector duty cycle is somewhere around high 80%, so it's going to eventually, if I do want to add some more boost to this car, I am going to have to do either a rising rate fuel pressure regulator or a bigger fuel pump to get more fuel in. But right now, all I have for fueling is some 610cc flow force injectors, and you know, like I said before, I tuned this car myself. It's very reliable. Cold starts fine. The timing is relatively conservative on the car. I just wanted something that I could boost for long periods of time without having to worry about it. I have run a couple track days with this car all day, 90-degree heat, no issues. Done several autocrosses, and the car just takes the power. I literally haven't had a single problem. So Miata's chassis, being from 1994, isn't as rigid as some of the newer cars. So I have done a few mods to tighten that up. I have some Paco Motorsports fender braces, a Hard Dog M1 Sport roll bar, Flyin Miata frame rails. For suspension, I wanted to go with a nice set of coilovers. I did a lot of research on this, and everything I've read pointed to 949 Racing's Xida coilovers. I could not be happier with them. They are a 700-pound spring in the front and 400-pound spring in the rear. It's a good balance for street driving and track driving. There's no point going fast if you can't slow down. So what I did was actually a big brake kit made by Wilwood, very common upgrade for Miatas. It's a 4-piston Dynapro calipers in front, stocks in the rear for now. I will eventually, I think, upgrade to either a set of Wilwoods in the back or a set of NB sport brakes. For the wheels, I went with the Avanti Storm S1 wheels. They are 15 by 8 and weigh 11 pounds. Really great bang for your buck. Those are wrapped in 205/50, 15, Falcon Azenis. I feel like it's a little bit too much grip for the street. I kind of wish it had a little bit less, so the car would move around a little bit more. So eventually, I think I'm going to go with another set of wheels that I have for track, and then do a set of like all-season tires for the street, so I can get the car to move around and be a little bit more playful on the street. For the exterior of the car, I kept it pretty simple. It's got a Garage Very knockoff lip in the front. I'm not a fan of the NA Miata mirrors, so I did a set of APR mirrors because I really like the way that those look. And I also added an R-Package OEM spoiler. I just like the nice clean look of that. So more recently, I've been working on making the interior a little bit nicer of a place to be. I just recently mounted a set of Corbeau A4s in micro suede, as well as some new door cards with some diamond stitch fabric. Inside, it's also got a Nardi Deep Corn 350mm steering wheel with some beautiful rev limiter, Sunstorm gauges with LED backlighting. It really like modernizes the look of and feel of the gauge cluster. So for right now, I'm pretty happy with how the car sits. If anything does ever happen, I'll probably end up doing a mild engine build or potentially swapping in an engine that has a little bit more torque. But right now, I'm just gonna enjoy it the way it is and keep driving it.
So Matchew, tell me, why this over a Honda S2000?
That's simple. I just don't want to have to downshift every time I go up a hill. I don't even know what STD corrected stands for.
I don't know, but I get tested for it every 6 months.
Oh, Brown.